All right. So I'll be talking about the. It's a detective series that starts with the novel The Silkworm, and the Silkworm and the series in general is about a detective who, in a tour that he did in Afghanistan as part of the British Army, he lost a part of his leg, his lower leg, I should say, and well, not a piece, but his lower leg from the knee down. He lost it, and he is now working as a private investigator. So he was working as a detective for the British Army. However, after some time, he wanted to enter into his own business venture, and he did. He opened up his own business. It's not doing that great. His life is not going that great, but there we are. Now, we do start off the story with it's more of a murder scene. So a woman, a model, she came back to her apartment, and this all takes place in London, and she is found on the ground, on the snow. However, she no longer has a pulse. She's no longer breathing. She's dead. She's no longer living. And so the murder scene, or the scene of death, I should say, is being investigated. They are collecting clues. They have everything with a perimeter. Police officers are there investigating. And as far as the news knows, I mean, she could have jumped or she could have been murdered, but there's nothing for certain. Now, after some time this happened, we are following this woman who is on the metro. She's on her way to her new job as a temporary secretary, or a temp. Now, when she arrives, it turns out that her employer is having some sort of domestic or personal issue going on, where he's fighting with another woman, and it looks like he was on the receiving end of things, as he's the one that's bleeding. The woman storms out, and he follows after. Now, she, not knowing what is going on, she sells herself. She starts arranging paper. She starts, getting ready to start working. The man, the employer, is the detective, Cormoran Strike, or actually, to use the full name, Cormoran Blue Strike. I know what you're saying. Blue is a color, not really a middle name, but blue is actually also the name of a species of bird. So there was that. Now, Robin, the woman that we've been following and who is the temp, she is actually pretty bright. Her major in university was psychology. After a personal traumatic experience or event, she ended up leaving the school and not finishing the degree, but that is not to say that she's not educated or she is not intelligent. She's actually very bright, and she does take initiative and so forth. Now, during the course of the investigation, as it turns out, a client comes at that moment, presents himself as the half brother of the model that had passed away. Not knowing if she was murdered or if she actually jumped from the balcony. Now, Cormoran knew his other half brother, the client's other half brother, who is no longer alive as well. So there is some sort of familial connection, not really, because he didn't know him that much, him personally, but okay. Anyways, so he does take the case, the investigation, because he starts saying that no, she was murdered, but they're saying that she committed the act on her own, that it was on her own volition. So Corman, being very wary, he does promise to look into it, but doesn't promise any results. as it were, he does find some indicative of something not quite right. So he does his own investigation. He does accept the case and he goes through with it. Now, during the course of the investigation, Robin actually is proving herself to be an important asset. There are times where information that he cannot obtain because of who he is. I mean, he is like 6'2", 6'4", something like that. He can be kind of intimidating, so not anybody is willing to talk to him, or especially over the phone. I mean, you hear this gruffy voice. However, Robin, being the not so petite, I mean, she's not that short, but being that she's a woman, she has a more delicate touch. Her voice, she is able to modulate it to emulate certain accents as well. I mean, she is able to have that. She has that factor to actually convince other people into giving in the information. People feel more comfortable with her, and that's what she does. I mean, she does provide that asset in which she obtains information for Corman. She does her own investigating on his request, obviously. But he is generally Corman is genuinely surprised by her. In the end, they do find some indicatives that she might have received a visit from someone that night, not from her then ex-boyfriend, but by somebody else who might have been in the building. And what is kind of hard on the case is that there are recordings from two different angles, two different cameras, on people wearing a black hoodie and running off. Now, the officers were saying it's the same person, or that it was one person and then there was an accomplice. The thing is, it was hard to prove who are the two people that were recorded, but also if they have any connection with each other to actually link to the crime. Now, upon further investigation, Corman does eventually find out that one of the people that was there was the model's half brother. Now, I'm not talking about the half brother who is the client, but rather the model. She was originally from her mother was originally from, I believe, I don't know. It's like a very poor area there in London, but her father, on the other hand, came from Africa, and he was in London studying a degree. He had a relationship with a woman. They had a child together, although he didn't know that until afterwards. And so it wasn't together, but still. And he disappeared. I mean, he did continue on with his life, unaware about the other girl. And the model, she, at one point, she does find out who her father was, and also is able to contact the mother because she was adopted. So she didn't know her father or mother. But she does find out who her father and mothers are. When she looks for them, she's disappointed by the mother because the mother, she's kind of a, how to put it lightly, let's say that she is the type of person to abuse the government system and the government assistance without being in a situation of discrimination, because she is a woman, she is low economic status. You know, her skin, despite the model being kind of, well, she is colored. I mean, she is half white, half black. The mother is white. She is not pleasant. I mean, the mother is not pleasant. When Corman goes to interview her, she is very predatory in trying to obtain as much as she can. Anyways, so the model did reach out to her mother. That's where it ended. She also looked out for her father, who was going to give a lecture. So she does in the university there at London. So she does meet with the father, and That night that she passed away, she had actually met up with her half brother from her father's side, her real half brother, not adopted brother. So I guess the client is not a half brother. She is the adopted anyway. So her half brother ends up visiting her that night. However, it does not appear to Cormoran that he was the one that pushed her off the ledge. So who was the one that actually murdered the model? Well, there's a plot twist. Because you see, the book several times goes into reminiscence into Cormoran's past, from what he is remembering of what happened in connection with the client's family. And so there was a time where he lived in the same village as that family. They obviously being a higher socioeconomic status compared to him, and he only lived there very temporarily. But he would go out with this other boy, and they would play together. As children, they would be running around and all of that. However, the boy that he would hang out with passed away. There was an accident, and he didn't survive. He didn't make it. However, there was always something off with the adopted brother. Now, the reason why Cormoran didn't know the model himself was that when Charlie, the boy who had suffered the accident and passed away, when Charlie died, at that around that same time, Cormoran moved to a different city. His mother had moved to a different city. But kind of like a replacement for Charlie, the adopted parents, they adopted a baby girl. And so he never actually knew the model, although he did knew the family. I mentioned this because it turns out that the client, he actually did kill his brother when they were younger. So when the accident happened, it was because he had tinkered a little bit with the bicycle, as being children both. He had tinkered with the bicycle, and it ended up with the death of his adopted brother. And as he felt that he was never good enough for the adopted parents, he was always in a constant, position of trying to earn their trust or being the good guy. And despite the model, her being the bad girl and doing the things that she shouldn't be doing, doing drugs or getting drunk or in scandals, etc., he never did feel the love. So when he didn't feel that he was the important part of that life, he wanted to be important in somebody's life, he became possessive over his adopted sister, over the model. That night, he had met up with the model, pushed her off the ledge off the balcony, and ran away. It just so happened that the model's half brother, who was going to meet up with her for the first time, was there, and when he saw her body fall to the snow, he ran away because he knew that if he stayed, he might be profiled as the instigator or the murderer. So, it wasn't going to go well for him. So he ended up leaving the scene of the crime, as you will. When Cormoran confronts the client slash murderer, well, there was a struggle. Robin happens to be there and is able to call the police, and the client is stopped and he is arrested and taken to jail to be prosecuted for his crimes. What I enjoyed and appreciate about this is that it is very easy. I guess I should also mention that Robin, she herself is engaged. She's engaged with her fiance Matthew, and Matthew is the type of person who he works as an accountant. He believes that he is entitled to be in a status above his own, that he should have the finer things in life, that he should be above the rest, that it's like a competition that he has to be at the top of the top, right? So it does come at times, it becomes a contention because Robin is not earning that much being a secretary for Cormoran. Not only that, but instead of working temporarily for Cormoran and then moving on to a different job, she decides to stay with Cormoran, working for him, because she has always wanted to be a detective, but she thought that she never could be, so she ended up trying to, be complacent with the second best option, which for her was earning her psychology degree and becoming a therapist. That's what she thought would be the second best option. But she always wanted to be a detective. It was always lingering in her mind. And so, and actually not even a therapist. I mean, I think she wanted to be like a forensic psychologist. That was what she was studying. They never really specify like what area in psychology, but she does mention that she has that type of background. And so what I do appreciate is that despite the issues and the problems that she has in her own relationship, and then Cormoran as well, Cormoran is not blind. I mean, he does find Robin to be attractive, but he never does a move to her in a romantic way. He always keeps a distance, a barrier, but it doesn't stop them from being friends, and they become close. I mean, in the rest of the series, you see how close they can get. Not necessarily that they're becoming romantic partners, but because they're going through, long nights, long investigations, this hard work, difficult situations. I mean, they're there for one another in both work and personal life. And so they become close friends in a short amount of time. And in this first book, you do see the inkling of what is a very tight friendship. And that's what I appreciate, because they are friends. The author is not pressuring them to be in a relationship. There's no pressure for them to be together in a romantic way. They are exactly that. Peers that work together. Friends who share experiences, life experiences together as well. Nothing romantic, at least for now. All right. So for me, I never thought I would be into detective series. Well, actually not that, because I have read the short stories from Sherlock Holmes, but I wasn't sure I was going to like this book when I first read it. And it turns out that, much like the Harry Potter books, I can reread this series every year as well. And it's become kind of a tradition at this point. All right. I don't know if I've made any convincing points to read it or watch the series, because I think it's like a mini TV series, something like that. But anyways, I don't know if I made convincing points to watch it or read it. So any questions, comments, or if you've seen it or read it, what did you think? Did you like it? What didn't you like? Feel free to comment. Keep everything decent. I know nobody is commenting in these videos, and probably nobody is watching. Doesn't matter. If you happen to stumble upon this, welcome. And I hope you enjoy these shenanigans I keep on talking about over and over. All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.